It's the Couple Mets podcast, episode 6, season 2. Ian Bosniak joined alongside by Robert Venegas. As always, Robbie, how we doing, man?
So being surviving, long 3 weeks with me, just a lot of coaching and a lot of work, but again, good to be back and, all settled in. So
Yeah,
we're here.
You're still sounding a little hoarse over there.
I sound like Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah.
Game 4 yesterday.
Oh boy, yeah, no. For the Knicks fans, we don't have to get into that. Hopefully, they can make a nice comeback. But yeah, so this is the Couple Mets podcast. And before we get going, just remember to give us a follow on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. We are at Cup of Mets. Again, that is at Cup of Mets. And also hit that follow button, subscribe button, whatever it is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your favorite podcast content. So the New York Mets entering today, May 9th, little bit of a different situation since we've last spoken. I was the one who, as Rob mentioned, he was a little under the weather last week, wasn't able to record, but the Mets were kind of going in a weird direction, after starting the season off quite well. And since then, now the Mets team underneath 500. They've lost 11 of their last 14 games. And it's kind of pitfalling them right now. A lot of their starting pitching, a lot of their bullpen, their offense, the runner in scoring position, the whole nine. Rob, what are you seeing from the guys right now? Obviously, they're in quite of a rut, and they're, losing to sub 500 teams, and now they are a sub 500 team. But what are you seeing from them right now? It's kind of really rough to watch right now.
No, yeah, I mean, pretty much what you said. They're not scoring with runners in scoring position. They're not cashing in. They're not making starting pitchers work on the other side. Again, and even our starting pitching failing to go 5 innings a start or a game. Bullpen is taxed. Honestly, the only arm I trust right now is David Robertson. But other than that, it's concerning. I mean, maybe the starting pitching, maybe age is playing a factor. Guys like Vogelbach, Kana, Escobar, even I know Escobar's role is now limited. Tomas Nido, they're just not hitting. And even our big boppers, Marte is struggling, Lindor striking out a ton. If it's not one thing, it's another. So it is concerning. Although we're only a game under 500, we're in May. Not really any bright spots to really, besides Robertson, to kind of like boast about. But again, it is a little alarming considering the fact that the Braves are already 7 or 8 games ahead of us, and the Marlins are no joke. And again, you still got the Phillies who just got Bryce Harper back. So
Absolutely,
it is a little alarming, and I'm not going to hit the panic button yet. But again, we're in May, and a lot of questionable calls in terms of management, and we'll see. We'll just see how it pans out the rest of May.
you can literally respond to this answer with one number. You just mentioned the word panic. Where are you on the panic meter?
5.
Okay. All right.
I'll go halfway.
I'm at like a 3.5, 4.
Yeah.
But before we get into the actual specifics of exactly what's going on with the starting pitching, with the pen, with the offense, a few things to note here as we get going. First and foremost, this morning, the New York Mets signed Gary Sanchez to a minor league contract. He, former Yankee all-star catcher, he will report to Syracuse. Could potentially, be a potential option. As Rob said, Tomas Nido not hitting whatsoever. I'll ask you about the impact of what you think it brings, but I just wanted to mention, despite a 205 batting average last year, getting on base at a 282 clip with the Minnesota Twins, he did hit 16 home runs, drove in 61 runs. And his average exit velocity was in the 78th percentile. His hard hit percentage was in the 92nd percentile. His barrel percentage was in the 90th percentile. So, yes, he strikes out a ton. Yes, he does swing and miss a ton, but he can still hit the ball a little bit. What are your thoughts?
No, definitely. I mean, Gary Sanchez has always been known to hit for power. Again, he did have like a little bit of an ugly ending out in the Bronx, but who knows? Maybe this crosstown New York signing can kind of motivate him to want to do better. He knows how to play in New York. Again, 15 plus home runs last year, coming off a after coming off a shitty year with the Yankees, especially in a ballpark like Minnesota. That's nice to see. And again, I think offensively the Mets are just not getting anything from the catching position once again. James McCann, we traded him this offseason. The last few seasons he wasn't hitting either. So maybe Gary Sanchez gives like Tomas Nido a little bit of a fire under his ass, or
That's what I was going to say.
maybe we make the switch and it's Sanchez and Alvarez, and I have no problem with that.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. And, the tricky thing is, we know now is that, obviously he has been abysmal and we'll get into that. But, the Mets did buy out his last year of arbitration, which would be next season. I think it was at like what, 158, over 2 years or something along those lines, both for 2 seasons, like three something. Yep. Obviously $1 million plus would be an easier drop, right? But Nido is a beloved figure. Maybe he would accept a little demotion in the minors. I really don't know. But even some of his framing abilities have kind of gone down the tubes. Obviously, Sanchez is not known for his defensive skills whatsoever. That would be a concern, especially pairing him with a rookie in Francisco Alvarez, who has looked great behind the dish. But that is something to keep in mind. Additionally, on the signing trend, he did sign right-handed relief pitcher and former Giant, Indian, Cardinal, Blue Jay, and a few other teams. A journeyman, Dominic Leone, to a major league contract. Thus far, he's thrown in 3 games, struck out 3. He's got a 6 ERA, but with that said, his FIP's a little bit lower. So, he has provided some decent relief, I suppose. The Mets also did option John Curtis to the minors. Jose Buto got sent back down to the minors. Zach Muckenham got sent back down to the minors. David Peterson, Denny Reyes. So there were a lot of transactions there. Steven Nagosic was activated from the IL, much did for the bullpen, considering, as Rob mentioned, the starters are going nowhere in the games. Tim LaCastro also begins a rehab assignment. Not really sure. Do you see any role for him whatsoever?
I love Tim LaCastro. He's a again, New York guy, but I don't see a role on him, especially just like a one-dimensional type role. I mean, again, we're struggling to get guys on base, so I can't really see him fitting in terms of like a pinch runner / steal a base kind of role. Even when he was up in the majors, he didn't really hit. I think in 5 games, but overall, I don't see a fit with this team for Tim LaCastro. I'd rather stack him in the minors. And again, if we keep going down with injuries offensively, just like we are with the pitching staff, then yeah, he'll get called up. But I'm good with what we have right now.
I think that given how the Mets are stealing bases currently, Nimmo, Lindor, Starling Marte, they're all running, right? So and even a guy like Tommy Pham. So the need for that guy, especially when we're not hitting and we're not slugging, the need for a one-dimensional guy is I don't see a fit whatsoever. Last but not least, the final quick note here, Carlos Carrasco has a rehab assignment set for tonight in Binghamton. Rob, what are your thoughts on a potential Carlos Carrasco impact? Obviously, he wasn't great in 3 starts, but given where the rotation is now, I think it's a welcome sight to see.
Definitely. I mean, again, I love Cookie Carrasco. Again, you mentioned it. First 3 starts weren't pretty, but again, having that veteran presence in the rotation, a guy that pitched for us last year and pitched well or pitched good, it could maybe help us a little bit and get the rotation going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just something that I want to see from Carrasco, if he does come back. I just want to see him, not walk batters, because that was a concern through those 3 games, because he does not walk a ton of batters. He's got good command, and he also gets a ton of batters normally to chase. He doesn't strike out a ton of hitters, right? But he does get hitters to chase, and he was getting nobody to chase. He was in the 13th percentile through 3 starts. So, but again, having Carrasco come back, given the state of our current rotation, is something that is definitely needed at this point. Moving into the starting pitching. The starting pitching has been abysmal, absolutely abysmal. I'll just give you it straight. The starters are averaging 4.9 innings per start, which is 27th in the major leagues. Their ERA is 5.34, which is 24th. Their WHIP is 151, which is 27th. 260 opposing batting average, which is 19th. They're striking out 8.1 batters per 9 innings. That's 20th. And they have given up 36 home runs, which is 28th in the league. So they're the second worst when it comes to giving up the long ball. So, obviously there's been a ton that's gone on. First and foremost, though, Justin Verlander made his Mets debut finally in his old ballpark in Detroit. Went 5 innings, struck out 5. Did give up back-to-back home runs in the first. It kind of looked like, oh boy, here we go, considering all the woes. But he ended up really settling in there, only walking batter, and really looked good. I saw a really, really nice fastball. He was able to get up there to, I saw, topping out at like 96, 97. He was able to, raise it to the top of the zone and, really kind of locate that, as well as his off-speed pitches. His curveball looked good as well. But overall, I think it was a good first step. Obviously, he did take the loss because the Mets didn't score. And apparently, Rob, apparently over in Houston, the Astros did not score for him, or in Detroit. He responded to a tweet of mine because I said, oh, Verlander is getting the DeGrom treatment today from the Mets offense.
Yeah,
And somebody said, oh, get used to it. That's something. So hopefully that's not a trend there. But Verlander back. He's set to start tomorrow night in Cincinnati. Really, really great to see. What do you see from JV?
Well, again, you said it best. His fastball velocity was there. Aside from that 1 inning where he gave up back-to-back home runs, off speed, changeup, curveball, filthy. I would have liked to see him go 6, but at the end of the day, just to see him out there, maybe get him going a little bit is going to help our rotation, bolster it a little bit. Again, 5 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, only 1 walk, 5 Ks. I'll take it for a first start with the Mets. I'll take that. But again, the thing with those stats that you said before, my biggest concern personally, not to jump the gun here, but 4.9 innings pitched per start. It's not even quality start material. So you'd like to see Verlander go at least 5-6. Same with Scherzer, but we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, and primarily in his start in Detroit, he went to that four-seam fastball and that slider,
Yeah.
and then kind of dabble with the curveball. Only threw 8 curveballs, but I agree. That's the biggest concern to me. I almost think that the Mets should go out and look at any available starting pitcher that is even qualified to give them 5 innings. Like, no joke. That's literally where they're at right now, averaging 4.9. You're taxing your pen. You're setting everything up for kind of failure. And it puts all the onus on the offense, which is inconsistent in and of themselves. I agree there. Verlander to me, extremely important. It's really important for me to see how he does tomorrow night in Cincinnati, coming off that debut. So hopefully nothing but the best from JV. And again, as you said, if we can get 6, potentially 7 innings, considering he only threw 80 some odd pitches in his return. I definitely think it's possible that we can see him head into the 6th and 7th and give us a little bit of length. From one ace to another, we head over to Max Scherzer, who returned from his 10-game suspension, started in Detroit, did not fare well against one of the worst offenses in baseball in the Tigers. Went 3 1/3, gave up 8 hits, 6 earned runs, walked 1, only struck out 3. Fastball velocity was sitting 92, 93. There were more people, focused on his velocity than kind of the command, which I kind of saw. And obviously he wasn't erratic in the sense of walking batters, but you could tell that he was just leaving everything up and over the dish. And that really did haunt him. Before we get into the latest news regarding Max Scherzer, how worried are you about him? Or do you think that this is just a little bit of a stretch?
I mean, again, it is concerning considering the fact that I'm comparing his start from last year to this year. Last year he started off like a beast, a Cy Young Award candidate, and then he gets hurt at home. This year, can't even get past the 4th inning against one of the worst offenses in baseball, like you mentioned. Again, when you're throwing pitches right down the middle, you're going to give up 8 hits and 6 earned runs in less than 4 innings. I'm not concerned about the velocity so much. I'm more concerned about his age. I think it's really catching up to him. I think it is going to play a factor.
Yeah.
This year. And another big concern is not working ahead at all. Even that one start against the Padres where he did good, he only lasted 5 innings. He was running full counts to every other batter. if you're hurt, you're hurt. Go on the IL, get yourself right, because if we are still around, we could use you down in the long run. Again, this also just brings me back to when he was with the Dodgers and he had quote unquote dead arm. Again, I don't know, Max. We got to figure it out with you, man. But if it's an age thing, then that's gonna happen. You're almost 40 years old, but at the end of the day, you're making a lot of money. If you're hurt, go on the IL, get yourself right. Maybe have you back July, August, and hopefully we're still in it.
Hopefully we're still in it. Can you believe
I
we're
know.
we're saying that?
I
No,
know.
no, no. We can't be one of those overreacting podcasts here. No, no, but listen, no, I do agree with you. I think just catching up to him, he is 38. He'll be 39 in July. I think that he could still be a dominant presence because he is very, very smart and he knows how, and he will hopefully adjust to the lack there of his whatever he's missing as he's getting older, right? With that being said, I also do think the pitch clock, which we thought would be working to his advantage big time in spring training, I do think
Yeah.
that's also affecting him as well. And I also think it affected Carrasco. I think it's affecting some of the older pitchers because they have to work much quicker. And they're still expected to throw, around that 100 pitch mark, right? No excuse here, but I think that's just something to note. But it is concerning when literally his best start aside from San Diego, which you mentioned, he only went 5 innings, and he still walked 3 batters, was the game that you and I were at in Miami
Oh
on
yeah, on
opening
opening day.
day,
Yeah.
where he went 6 innings, and that's the most he's gone so far. And as you said, if he is injured, um, you know, go on the IL. And that brings us to New York Post Mike Puma mentioned that he had a chat with Max Scherzer, and the quote was, "I'm doing everything I can to get through this without having it linger the rest of the season. Just don't break." He's trying to do. That's great. I'm trying like hell not to go on the IL. I'm fighting through this and doing everything I can, but this is the big leagues and no one cares if you're hurt. You've got to go out there and perform. So I get it. Do you think he should go on the IL? Obviously, our options are thin, but do you think that would be best for him and the club in general, or do you want to see how he fares tonight?
I think we see how he fares tonight, and if he fails to go another 4 or 5 innings, and the velo is down, then you might have to reevaluate.
Yeah, yeah, no, I kind of agree there. Listen, he's only thrown 22 and 2/3 of an inning, this season through 5 starts. Granted, one of them he got ejected in for some BS nonsense, but I definitely think that it's unfortunately a cause for concern. But if he can be, if he's healthy, and even if age is a factor and it's catching up to him, if he can be 80% of what Max Scherzer normally is, or of a dominant Max Scherzer, you
Mm-hmm.
know, then I think things would be okay. So Rob, with Verlander returning, making his second start tomorrow, Scherzer trying like hell not to go on the IL and pitching tonight, making his sixth start. Kodai Senga 4-1, but still adjusting to the big league, still walking a ton of guys. McGill, Peterson, Luke Casey, all have been shaky. I just want to ask you, who's the starter that at this point right now that you are most concerned with? Not just how they're performing right now, but kind of like as we continue on in the season.
I mean, again, I hate to say it, it's Max Scherzer. This, and I'm just looking ahead. A guy who has a opt out clause. If he has a bad season, I could see him opting in. Making that money. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's if it's not one thing, it's another. He can't, if he doesn't go 5, 6, 7 innings like he usually does, he gets beat up. You know what I mean? And I think that's just concerning, that what he said to Mike Puma. It's like he's trying like hell not to get on the IL. It's like, but it's not like we're gonna ask you if you want to be on the IL, or if you go on the IL. But again, it's just very concerning, especially for a guy who did Max Scherzer things last year, especially with the absence of Jacob DeGrom. Um, and just honestly, like not having him and putting more load on Justin Verlander and the pitching rotation, it just doesn't seem like a recipe for success. So my biggest concern is Max Scherzer.
Yeah, I would unfortunately have to agree with you. And I think that, come our next sesh next week, our tones may, may have another answer after we see what happens tonight. But it has to be Max Scherzer. I mean, he's not only allowing hard hit balls, but he's allowing guys to hit dingers off him. He's walking batters. He's uncharacteristically, as you mentioned earlier, falling behind batters left and right. He's still getting hitters to swing and miss. And he's still getting good, fastball spin, and he's still amongst, the middle of the pack when it comes to whiff percentage. But aside from that, his fastball velocity has dipped a bit. And as I said, I'm not as worried about that. I'm as worried about him adjusting to maybe his new set of skills, and how he can turn himself and kind of make himself last a little bit longer. With that being said, though, if this injury really is bogging him down, then perhaps we see what happens tonight. And then maybe he hits the shelves and comes back in a couple months and really kind of, fires up again. What aspect of the starting rotation, everybody who's made the starts, from Jose Budo to Justin Verlander, and from all the stats and all the rankings that I gave you earlier that we mentioned where the Mets currently sit within the major leagues, what aspect of the starting rotation is most concerning to you? Is it the home runs? Is it the walks? Is it the...
I mean, again, as a starter, you look, especially nowadays, you're looking to go for quality starts. So again, I'm my biggest concern and of or
All right,
my
aside from
yeah.
that, I should have prefaced.
I mean, again, 260 opposing average is concerning. It's not terrible, but top 20, like we're in the bottom 20, so that's pretty bad. I mean, only 8.1 strikeouts through 9. That's also concerning. I mean, as pitching, you got to leave the ball in the ballpark. 36 home runs is third or second worst in the league. That's a lot, especially for starters that are expected to go 5, 6, 7 innings. Keep the ball in the damn ballpark. Trust your defense. Stop walking guys. When you walk guys, they're like my freaking JV baseball team. When you walk guys, terrible shit's going to happen. You walk
Yep.
2, 3 guys in an inning and someone hits a home run, you're already down 3.
Yep.
So keep the ball in the damn ballpark. Trust your defense. Keep it low. Brandon Nimmo's a gold glove center fielder. You got Lindor at short. You got McNeil out wherever the hell he's playing. Your defense is going to pick you up. Keep the ball in the damn ballpark.
Yes, sir. Amen to that. Amen to that. I think the home runs are definitely concerning, being the second worst in the majors, but the whip to me is something that's massive. A collective 151 whip. So not only are they walking batters, but they are giving up hits. They are constantly having guys on base, literally from the beginning of the innings. And that's what's concerning to me. Even a guy like Kodai Senga, who's 4-1, right, and who has pitched as well as he can in his adjustment to the major leagues, he's still walking a ton of batters and is in the lower percentiles there, when it comes to walking batters per 9 innings as well. You just can't give batters free passes there, aside from obviously you need to go more than 5 innings, unless our bullpen's going to be dead by the end of May. We can't be walking guys. That's bottom line.
This reminds me of 2018 when we couldn't go past 4 or 5 innings with our starting rotation: Matt, Syndergaard, Harvey,
Yeah.
DeGrom,
Yeah.
Wheeler.
Yeah.
And that was a fresh off a hire of Mickey Callaway, who's like a pitching guru, and then Dave Island, who won a World Series with the Royals in
Yeah.
2015. It just spells 2018 all over again.
Yeah. I mean, listen, when you look at, the Mets pitching, when you see that, I can't even believe this. When you see that for WAR thus far, when you see that there's only one starter within the top within the top 6 pitchers, you only see one starter in the top 6 for WAR amongst Mets pitchers. That's a concern, and that only guy is Kodai Senga, and he's only posted 0.1 WAR thus far. With the starters failing to go 5 or more innings, obviously the bullpen is being taxed, and all these guys are going to end up with Pedro Feliciano type years, appearing in 70 plus games. How will it impact them down the road? Obviously, they have dealt with a bunch of injuries, and they don't have many arms eligible down in the minors, aside from those that they just called down, like a Budo, a Curtis. But how do you think that this is going to impact them down the road? And obviously, if the starters don't get it together, how are the Mets going to be able to patch this up?
I mean, again, you said it best. You can't have your bullpen guys throwing, appearing in 70 plus games like Pedro Feliciano. I mean, some of them you can, some of them you can't. We're dropping like flies in the bullpen, but again, if this continues, Billy Epler is going to have to do his job and keep picking up, guys like Dom Leone I saw Jake Diekman got DFA'd. I mean, you got to keep looking out in the market. Again, if starting pitching doesn't get better, you gotta look at the trade market. I mean, we don't really have anything to work with unless you really trust your young guys to come up and you think they can impact at the big league level.
Which we don't have.
Again, which we don't have exactly. So the trade market is calling. I think. I mean, I don't think did Mad Bumgarner get picked up yet or no?
No, no.
So I don't really know what we're waiting for, especially if Scherzer hits the IL.
I feel like Mad Bum may be calling it, may hang him up. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I could see that as well. But again, Billy Epler's got to do his due diligence, and you know, it is concerning. I feel bad because we do have some good bullpen arms, but can't win if they're not around, especially if they're pitching a lot of games already, and we're not even 2 months into the season. So.
Yeah. Listen, they're being overused, right? The guys that we're really seeing production from is a David Robertson, a Drew Smith, and an Adam Ottavino. Ottavino's been a little shaky as of recently, but those have been the three main guys. We've also seen Jeff Brigham come up and look good, posting a 3.60 ERA despite a 4.75 FIP, but has been good through 9 games. I just think that, as you mentioned, this all comes back to the starting pitching. We need to get healthy. We need to add whoever. And that's exactly kind of the point that I was making earlier about we need to get anybody qualified that can give us 5 innings. If Mad Bum is willing to come to New York, bring him in. I don't care if he sucked in Arizona. Maybe him working alongside Verlander and Scherzer, being with 2 other, future Hall of Famers will spark him up, recognizing that this club actually has a chance to win and he can get his 4th ring. I don't know if that's what motivates him, or I don't know if it's his ranch in Arizona and he just wants to go home. I have no idea, but any other arm that can throw 5 innings, I was going to say, call Matt Harvey before he, retired. And, we'll touch upon that. That's a sad thing. But I mean, overall, right now, I mean, the Mets don't have many options, but who do you think's the biggest liability? Because to me, I'm really starting to get like the shakes when Tommy Hunter comes in. And I love Tommy Hunter as an individual. He's somebody that's really, really scaring me, considering he's been used in some high leverage situations for some reason. Granted, we don't have many options, but I don't know who's the biggest liability to you. I mean, a bunch of them are, but
I mean, listen, I don't think he's a big liability, but something to be concerned about. A guy like Adam Ottavino, his last 7 games, he's pitched to a 5.14 ERA with a WHIP at 1.14, 4 home runs, 5 hits, and over 7 innings. He does have 3 saves in those 7 innings, but at the same time, he's walked 3 to 4 guys. For a guy that had an ERA around 2 last year, and now he's almost doubled that this year in 13 games is very concerning, considering that Ottavino was a big priority in the offseason.
Yeah, no, and I agree. Adam Ottavino is a concern. Hopefully, it's just a little blimp on the radar, and he can kind of get back to what he was doing before he kind of went down this route. But I want to talk to you about something that you just said, Adam Ottavino, and having 3 saves within that 7-game period, but posting a 5.91 ERA. I brought this up left and right. I brought it up when I was by myself last week, and I brought it up when I was with you in episode 4. Buck Showalter's bullpen management is bothering me. Even the one win that the Mets have collected in their last X amount of games, the one game that they salvaged the series opener against the Rockies, Adam Ottavino closed the game. Again, I don't want to hear this best hitter bullshit, but what are your thoughts there? And we've seen it multiple times now. Granted, I know that Buck has limited options to work with, but something like that, like that's what I'm kind of referring to.
No, no, definitely. And again, I'm not going to give you that best three hitter bullshit because at the end of the day, the
Thank you.
Rockies aren't a team you do that to. You know, you do that to the Dodgers, you do that to the Yankees, you do that to, you know, teams like the Braves. But again, the fact that David Robertson hasn't been assigned as the full time closer is beyond me. Guy has in 13 games his ERA under one, 18 strikeouts. His WHIP is under one in 14 innings. Again, he's five strikeouts away from 1,000, but you know, fun fact. But again,
There we go.
David Robertson has the experience. My biggest concern with Ottavino, especially again, and guys stole a lot of bases on Ottavino last year. So if he walks a guy in the ninth inning, especially with the bigger bases, the amount of throws you can make or disengagements, quote unquote,
Yeah.
it's maybe that's a factor in why Ottavino's ERA is so high or
Yeah.
why he's struggling the last 7 games. But again, I'm not gonna bring up that three hitter bullshit. I don't disagree with you at all. Bucks bullpen management has been a concern, and again, it's just something that needs to be addressed.
So it's not just the starting pitching that has been a problem. That's been their main problem, yes, but the offense hasn't necessarily done their part. They have done in several games, which they have lost grant due to the starting rotation. But right now, they've posted as a club collectively 102 weighted runs created plus with 15th in the major leagues. They are slugging at just a 383 clip, which is 22nd in the league. And obviously with that, they only have hit 36 home runs, which is 21st in the league. Right now, I mean, all that's a concern, and people are talking about the way that Buck is implementing his lineup day in and day out. Obviously, some of the kids haven't been called upon, and we'll talk about that. But right now, given their situation and given who's on their roster, how would you construct your everyday order? Because some people are saying that Nimmo should be taken out of the leadoff spot, even though he's getting on base at a high clip. And people think that Lindor should be moved down the lineup and Baty got moved up to the fifth spot and this, that, and the third. And what are your thoughts? How would you roll out the lineup there? And see Marte's struggling a ton as well. So that kind of factors into it if they're batting him second. But
Yeah, again, I mean, I'm gonna go off what you just said just now. Marte, he should be put down in the lineup, maybe sixth. Again, Brandon Nimmo, I think he's an ideal leadoff hitter, so I'm not moving him. He's hitting 310 with 3 home runs, 14 RBIs. He does still get on base at a high clip. Again, Lindor, I know he's struggling. He strikes out a lot, but he's your best hitter overall, aside from Jeff McNeil. And your best power hitter is Pete Alonso. He stays at 4. But I think McNeil needs to start hitting third. I do think Lindor needs to start hitting second and just kind of that table setter role. Instead of being that guy that gets the table setters in. Marte needs to be bumped down. I tweeted it the other day. Brett Baty batting fifth gives me 2006 David Wright vibes. Brett Baty needs to be moved up. He needs to be behind Pete Alonso. I love that. That Buck kind of fooled around with that. And it ended up working out, I believe, even though we lost that game. But anyways, I do 1 through 6. I see Nimmo, Lindor, McNeil, Alonso, Baty, Marte. 7 through 8, you could just mix it up, play with it. Depends who you start. Depends who is playing. Like obviously, if Guillorme's at second, McNeil's in the outfield. I think Alvarez needs to be seventh. But again, if Canna or Pham or Vogie are playing, then Alvarez stay in the 9 hole. But again, we'll see. I do like that 1 through 6 I said, but again, the Mets were very effective last year, 1 through 9. Can't just be 1 through 3, 4 through 5, whatever. It's got to be a whole collective agreement, 1 through 9, and they got to make pitchers work. They're not making pitchers work as much as this year as much as last year.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. This is my lineup right now. You can tell me. Brendan Nimmo leading, Lindor second, McNeil third, Alonso 4, Baty 5, Marte 6. Then you have Canna 7, or Tommy Pham, whoever's playing better. I'm down to literally play whoever's hitting. 8, I have Francisco Alvarez. 9, I have Daniel Vogelbach. Daniel Vogelbach, reason being, Daniel Vogelbach is getting on base at a 398. So if Alvarez ends up being the last hitter within an inning, Daniel Vogelbach is essentially a second leadoff hitter. Kind of like what
Yeah.
the Cubs did several years ago with Kyle Schwarber, right? When they
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
him lead off. I think that would be a good option. Something else that I thought of, you could literally, I know this is going to sound wild and people are going to criticize me, but you could literally, I'm writing it down as I'm doing it, but you could literally put Vogelbach as your leadoff hitter.
Okay.
Okay. And you can have him lead off because I got to be honest, dude. People are talking trash about Daniel Vogelbach. I don't want to hear it. I really don't. He's hitting 265, getting on base at a 398 clip, 412 slugging, and he's got 135 weighted runs created plus. Okay. He's worth point 0.3 war, whereas other hitters are not even, close to that for the
Yeah.
Mets. So anybody who gets on base, me, I think that they should kind of be up there. Then I would bat Lindor second, a Nimmo third, a Alonso four, McNeil five, Baty six, and then I would go Marte six, Baty seven, Alvarez eight, and then Canna nine, because Canna also can get on base at a high clip, and he can also then be another
That's
leadoff
an
hitter.
interesting lineup.
Yeah,
No, that's interesting. I never even
I
came
told you,
across
man.
Vogelbach leading off.
I told you, bro. When you need a bench coach, you let me know. You let me
I
know.
will.
I'm there. I mean, I'm more of the
Well, well, again, the last 15 games, Daniel Vogelbach's been hitting 308
there it
with a
is.
413 OBP.
Well, there it is. And for some reason, he keeps getting hate. I know that he's a one-dimensional player, but people want to bring back Tim LeCastro. At least
Yeah,
Daniel Vogelbach can get on base and hit
yeah.
home runs and drive in runs. Granted, he hasn't driven
I
in.
mean, again, he's only hit 2 home runs, but at the end of the day, he only had one season where he had over 20 home runs. So,
Exactly.
again, he's known to get on base. He's known to work counts. So maybe Buck is listening and he takes your advice.
There it
But
is.
again, interesting lineup. That's like when we talked about Jose Reyes batting third back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, dude. You listen, Nimmo has improved his contact skills and he's still getting on base at a crazy clip. And he also has a little bit more pop, is a gap to gap hitter. So why not?
Yeah, why not? No,
You
no,
know,
that's true. Why
he could
not?
be a three hitter in a lot of other orders. He could also lead off in a lot of other
Yeah,
orders. So, you could just chop it up,
yeah.
chop it up,
Just look at
however
us.
you want.
Look at
Yeah.
us making lineups.
There it is. There it is. We got Buck and Chavi over here.
You're Eric Chavez, right?
Yeah. Just because you got the managerial experience. Do we have any confidence in Tomas Nido? I know that we mentioned earlier about the Mets signing Gary
And
Sanchez.
I know,
Um,
I know.
Obviously
Listen, I love the kid.
Nito's under contract through next
Yeah,
year, homegrown player. Do we have any
yeah,
confidence
exactly.
moving
But
forward?
again, I love him. But you mentioned it before too. His framing has gone down. It's one thing if you hit 200, but he's hitting below the Mendoza line in 50 at bats, only one RBI. I mean, again, if there's nobody on base, he's not, he's gonna get out because when there's people on base, he usually bunts. I don't know. He's just an automatic out to me.
Oh my gosh.
Um, and he's starting to catch less. I mean, Alvarez is starting to play better. He's not chasing as much. So maybe a signing like Gary Sanchez, like I said before, gets Nito going. Maybe gives him a little like a fire under his ass, telling him I want to stay. I got to play better. But do I have confidence in him? Not really. Not right now.
Yeah.
Has he even
Yeah.
thrown runners out?
Not really. Not
So
really.
there
I
you
don't I
go.
don't I don't have much of his I don't have much.
And
Here we
and
go.
listen, I'm not opposed either. I didn't say this before. I'm not opposed either if the Mets are like, hey, Gary Sanchez is our right-handed DH, and then you got Nito and Alvarez doing all the catching. But I just don't see it.
Yeah, they can't do that because
Yeah,
Gary Sanchez then will be one dimensional as well with
exactly,
Tomas Nido.
exactly.
So yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, listen, Nido to me, I have no confidence in his bat. He's also getting on base at a 148 clip. You know me, average doesn't matter as much. On base percentage does. That's what bothers me. His OPS is 266. That's literally a fucking batting average. So that is such a concern. And as you said before, his defense is taking a step back. He's not throwing out as many runners, and his framing is only in the 52nd percentile, whereas last year he was within the top 10. So I think that's definitely a concern, but I do like the signing of Gary Sanchez, despite his defensive incompetence behind home plate. Brett Baty and Francisco Alvarez, another one of those catchers in Alvarez. What are we seeing from them? They look great. Brett Baty thus far, 2 home runs. He's slashing 286, 344 on base percentage, 446 slugging percentage, 123 weighted runs created plus, and he's been worth 0.4 WAR. And then Francisco Alvarez starting to come around. He's got 1 home run, but has hit 220, 264 on base percentage, 320 slugging percentage, but he has been worth 0.1 WAR as well. And he's been amongst the best in the major leagues when it comes to framing. He's been great defensively,
which is awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Which such a great development. What are you seeing from them? I expected Baty to come up and hit. A regression was gonna come when
that was you. That was your call. Great call right there. Brett Baty is the guy. I thought Alvarez was the guy, but Brett Baty is the guy. He gives me David Wright vibes where he's just gonna gel in and stay with the team for years to come. But listen, it's very, again, as bad as we're playing, as bad as the pitching has been, it's really good to see these kids starting to play and starting to mesh and starting to get used to the major league level, especially Francisco Alvarez, a guy who started chasing everything, who couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat, fucking comes into an interview and says, hey, I'm starting to get used to this. It's just like any other level, this, that, and the third. It's good to see. He's starting to catch more. He like you said before, his framing's one of the best, and that's awesome because his biggest concern was defense. But, the fact that he's not chasing as much, he got his average up to 220. The power is going to come, especially when you're not chasing as much. Pitchers are going to start attacking you more, and that's where Alvarez is going to take advantage and maybe hit a couple big home runs for us. My biggest thing is right here, the last 7 games, he's hitting 313. He's got 2 RBIs, 2 walks, only struck out twice, and he's got 5 hits along those 16 at bats. Again, and he's hitting 438 slugging percentage with a 389 OBP. That's awesome, man. I mean, I love the kid. He's only 21 years old. I mean, that's why we stress a lot that Mauricio and Vientos need to join the squad, and they need to join these kids, and the kids need to play.
Expand that even further. If you go to his last 15 games, yeah, he's got a 256 average, but he's got a 310 on base percentage, right? So especially out of what we've seen offensively from our catchers over the last few years, that's a big that's a big upgrade. And the power's going to come. He nearly missed a home run the other day that went off the top of the wall over at City. So that's definitely something that it's really nice to see. And as you said, especially when we're playing poorly, definitely is a silver lining to see. Lastly, the last note on the offense, Ronnie Mauricio and Mark Vientos keep raking. They both have OPSs 900 and above. They're both hitting for power. They're both hitting, extra base hits. They're both hitting, just a ton in the minors, right? It is time to call upon them. Whether when that occurs, I don't exactly know. I think Ronnie Mauricio may be closer given the fact that they've moved him over to second base and they've also started dabbling with him in the outfield, and considering Vientos might be a one-dimensional player. But you agree, you said it before, you think it's time for them to come. Who do you think is first out of Mauricio and Vientos, and who do you think the roster casualty would be there?
Again, I think Mauricio should be the first call up. That's just me personally because we're not getting enough production from guys like Escobar and Guillorme. Unfortunately, Guillorme would be my casualty because he has another option left. And on top of that, Escobar is a good veteran clubhouse presence. I still like him around the guys, especially the young guys. So that's just another, I guess, leadership task for Escobar to kind of guide a Mauricio like he's guiding a Brett Baty. You mentioned Vientos before. Again, I think both of them should be called up at the end of the day. But again, Mauricio, like you said, he's more. You could dip and dabble with him at second, third, outfield. But Mark Vientos, I mean, you didn't have his stats, but again, he's hitting 340 with 10 home runs and 1120 OPS. So again, that's a right-handed bat that we would like to have also on the major league roster.
Yeah. I do agree with you. First off, obviously crazy numbers there in Vientos and a right-handed bat that we could use. With that being said, while he has received some playing time in the outfield, he really is either a first baseman or a third baseman if he's playing defensively. Obviously he's blocked there. So he really is that another one-dimensional type player. I think
Yeah.
Mauricio is the guy. I do have his numbers up now. Mauricio is hitting 333 with a 370 on base percentage. His OPS is 951. He's got 6 home runs. He's got 6 stolen bases. He's driven 18 runs. I mean,
He's a switch hitter.
he's a switch hitter. He's a difference maker, man. He's an absolute difference maker. You know, I was saying earlier, listen, I agree with you. Unfortunately, Guillorme, you use that final option. You send him down. You roll with Mauricio at second base, with McNeil in left, and then in certain days, then you can either play Mauricio at DH. He's also dabbling in the outfield. I'm not sure if Buck wants to go ahead and do that, but if he can play a little bit of left field as well, that would open the doors there. So I agree with you, Mauricio, and I heard a rumbling earlier today that it could be soon. What were you going to say there?
Oh no. I was just gonna go off what you said. Like I do like the fact that if Mauricio does get called up, I like him at second. Move McNeil in the outfield, whether it's in left or right. I personally, I would move McNeil to right and Marte to left. Just because Marte's been struggling a little bit in right field. You could also DH Marte and give Canna Fam some platoon time in terms of left field.
True.
But again, I just think it gives the Mets more versatility and more options to just dip and dabble with that lineup, try to figure out the right lineup to score us runs, you know? So again, right. I'm excited. Again, I understand we're 1 game under, but at the same time, I'm excited for these kids and I'm excited to see what these guys can do, regardless of the outcome.
Absolutely. I'm with you. And I'm also just going to put you on the spot here. I'm not even going to answer my own question that I'm going to ask you. Let's say Mauricio gets called up, Guillorme gets sent down. Okay. It's time for Vientos to be called up. Obviously, the Mets would have options then to DFA Escobar or a Fam. I mean, he's only under contract for a year, potentially a Canna. I don't know. What would be your thinking there? Do you have any thought process behind that?
I don't, but I do remember Buck saying he could fuck with a 4-man rotation, so maybe they get rid of an arm. But no, I'm just kidding. We can't get rid of arm.
Yeah, what a 4-man rotation?
We got. I don't know. I mean, again, unfortunately, it would have to be a guy like Escobar. I mean, because I do think Canna still brings value to the team. I also do think Tommy Pham is good enough to stay because of how he hits lefties, how he's playing and has established that role against a left-handed pitcher. But it's definitely that's the worst part about being a manager and just professional sports in general. You got to make a tough decision eventually. So, it's a business. So
before we finish up here, episode 6, season 2 of the Cup of Mets podcast, we just want to talk about something briefly. 4 days ago, former New York Mets ace, the Dark Knight, Matt Harvey, announced his retirement. He bid adieu from the game of baseball. His final tip of the cap was, with Team Italy in the World Baseball Classic, and he said goodbye. He specifically thanked the New York Met fans in his retirement post. I just want to ask you, obviously, he came up in 2012, and 2013 was such an electric season. I've never seen anything remotely close to that in my life. In terms of electricity, obviously the Jacob deGrom seasons during his Cy Young campaigns were unbelievable. Yeah. But the difference was that the Mets were not a great team, but they were emerging. And this kid that is essentially homegrown, and he's from Connecticut, comes out and pitches lights out. For me, my favorite memory for me was him going out and him dominating in the clinching game in 2015. Nice. That was my favorite memory for Matt Harvey. He pitched an absolute gem, and the Mets really backed him up. They scored a ton of runs when they clinched in Cincinnati when they won the NL East. And it was really, really nice to see Matt Harvey walk off the mound. There were a contingent of Met fans there that were all going crazy for him. And it really epitomized, he had Now New York Met Justin Verlander. I think Justin Verlander and Matt Harvey's 2015 season was one of the greatest, along with Verlander's 2022, the greatest seasons coming off of Tommy John surgery.
Yeah.
And that start really just epitomized the thing for me. Any words for the Dark Knight?
Well, just to go off of what you said, I think the best part about your favorite memory is that people were at the time were questioning his competitiveness, were questioning if he wanted to pitch for the Mets, were questioning, especially that whole Scott Boras innings limit thing, and that start in general, that clinching start, that clinching game, just kind of he threw all that nonsense out the window. He went over his pitch limit, he went over his innings limit. And the best part in what I remember was when Terry Collins took him out. You just see him smiling with his fat lip in, smiling, saying, "Yeah, I got you. We got this. We got this." And Terry just patting his ass and being like, "Yo, I'm proud of you." Shit like that. Moments like that you always remember as a Met fan. But
Absolutely.
one of my favorite memories, aside from him making an All-Star game start in 2013 at Citi Field, was in 2013, Matt Harvey versus Steven Strasburg, Citi Field. April May, I want to say. I
April.
forgot the month exactly, but it was 3-0 Matt Harvey versus 3-0 Steven Strasburg. Up and coming Mets versus already established up and coming Washington Nationals. Their best versus our best, and Matt Harvey prevailed. And the chants Harvey's better.
It was wild.
Electric atmosphere for a team that didn't even make the playoffs. Guys like Marlon Byrd on the roster.
Yeah, John Buck.
Jordan Valdez-Spin, and we were at that game too. We had great seats. We were behind the third base dugout,
Yeah,
and just to feel that atmosphere, that 06, 07, 08 atmosphere in 2013, was
which
just
we
one of my
hadn't in
favorite
so
moments.
long. Yeah,
Yeah, I know, and it's one of my favorite moments. It was kind of like, and even Joe Buck said it best when Harvey was starting the All-Star game. It's one of many bright spots that the Mets are looking forward to in these next coming years, and he was right because 2 years later we made the World Series. So. Congrats
exactly.
to Matt Harvey, Dark Knight. We love you. We wish we could have you still on the team or in the organization, but again, nothing but the best. And if you're looking to coach, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, listen, cheers to Matt Harvey.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Obviously his career didn't pan out the way that many thought it would, considering the start. But when you're dealing with Tommy John surgery and then dealing with
Thoracic outlet syndrome.
thoracic outlet syndrome, and then obviously some of the off the field issues, which again, he had owned up to, and he admitted that he had some problems. So, nothing but the best to Matt Harvey, and hopefully, within baseball, at least, hopefully, maybe on the field, he's finished, but hopefully this isn't the last that we see of Matt Harvey.
Yes,
Rob,
sir.
as we wrap up, episode 6, season 2, the Mets head to Cincinnati tonight. Max Scherzer takes the mound versus Luke Weaver. Justin Verlander gets the ball tomorrow against Hunter Green, and Kodai Senga gets the ball in the finale against left-hander Nick Lodolo. Any thoughts on the series? Any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
No, just take it one game at a time. I know, again, it's we're not hitting panic right now, but again, we just got to take it one game at a time. Let's try to figure it out as a team, as an organization, as a fan base, and hopefully it works out because this summer's about to be lit.
Absolutely. And as we said earlier, listen, I'm at a 4, Rob's at a 5 on the panic scale. So everybody chill out, take your pills, relax, do what you got to do. Okay. Don't worry. It's a long season. We're 35 games in. But as Rob said, this summer's about to be lit. And the Mets are really just getting going, hopefully. For Robert Venegas, I am Ian Bosnick. Thank you very much for joining. And we'll see you next time. Good night, everybody.